Hello, this is a video for the students taking the AP US History exam. Today we will discuss counterculture, more specifically, the counterculture of the 1960s. What is counterculture? This term is used to describe a way of life and set of attitudes opposed to or at variance with the prevailing social norm. Counterculture often characterizes the 1960s, where more people began to reject a typical way of life, such as materialism, traditional monogamy, conservatism, social and racial inequality, and war. People involved in the counterculture movement usually promoted peace, free love, hallucinogenic drug use, protection of the environment, human rights, birth control, and liberal politics and policies. These people were often referred to as hippies due to their unusual dress and long hair. The causes of counterculture were the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, World War II, televised war violence, and the Cold War. Many young people rejected the values of the previous generation because of the violence that was caused during that time. This younger generation wanted to cleanse American society of these issues. One key event during the 1960s was the sexual revolution. This changed the way that marriage, family, and sex was viewed. Before the sexual revolution, family values and rules were much more constricting. For example, women were usually seen in the home, restricted to caring for the family and the house, and had fewer rights. The lack of rights for women inspired Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, which exposed the lack of equality for women and promoted feminism. The younger generation desired more freedom in relationships and began to support birth control, free love, and feminism. Monogamous marriages were still the norm, but divorce rates began to increase. Premarital sex also became common because of the increased use of birth control, which allowed sex to become recreational. The counterculture of the 1960s also advocated equal rights for African Americans, gays, and immigrants. Peaceful protests were often common as people promoted equality. Minorities that had once been looked down upon or degraded now gained more acceptance in society, particularly in the hippie community. Protection of the environment was another cause that gained attention during the 1960s. Hippies wanted to preserve the beauty they saw in nature. This was caused by the destruction of natural resources and pollution caused by large cities and wars. A novel that influenced this movement was Silent Spring, written by Rachel Carson. Counterculture is often characterized by the emergence of drug use during the 1960s. Marijuana, LSD, heroin, and other drugs were commonly used by many hippies during this time. This was a reaction to the strict moral society of the 1950s. Drugs were viewed as an escape from reality by young people of this generation. Drugs became a leisure activity instead of used for medicinal purposes. Hippies often dressed in a distinct style, using bright colors and patterns in their clothing, growing their hair out, incorporating nature, such as floral and sun prints, into their outfits. Denim jeans were popular, often flaring out around the ankles. Many hippies sported headbands or clothes tied around their forehead, and in circular sunglasses became popular. People at this time also began to wear less clothing and were open to showing more skin than the generation of the 1950s. Music of the time also changed. Popular musicians included the Beatles, Bob Marley, the Grateful Dead, and Jim Morrison. Their music often focused on topics that the hippie community valued, such as world peace, equal rights, and drug use. Hippies often gathered together at music festivals, such as Woodstock, which was an outdoor music festival that promoted peace. Events such as this attracted large groups of counterculture supporters. Some people did not embrace the new ideas promoted during the 1960s and quickly returned to conservatism. It became apparent that the counterculture was not a resolution to many problems, and that most people felt that the constant drug use and casual sex was not an appropriate lifestyle or a way to conduct oneself. People worried about the future of America under the control of the new far left, and feared that society was becoming too loose and morally corrupt. This drove many people to abandon the hippie lifestyle and return to typical society by the 1970s. Potential questions on the AP test may involve the causes of the beginning and end of the counterculture movement, causes that the counterculture movement supported, how the counterculture shaped American society, what was changed by counterculture, and what remained the same before and after counterculture.